Hello and welcome everyone. A new episode of Money Means Business. In fact, there are a number of economic events. Many events took place in the last 7 days, and there were a lot even of reports released by international and local economic entities. But we are going to focus on the most important event, which took place in Beijing, which is the China-Africa Forum. Cooperation between China and Africa is really tremendous, and it can be such a fruitful cooperation, ending with very positive results, having their positive impact on both sides. And President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi was to attend, but according to some busy schedule as usual, Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, on behalf of the President, headed to Beijing earlier and spent a few days there in this official visit to participate in the forum and to represent Egypt, to address the gathering, and also to hold on the sidelines of the event a number of important meetings, whether with businessmen, with high-ranking Chinese officials, with the CEO of high-profile companies, and he discussed a number of issues. He discussed a number of files, all related to the fruitful economic cooperation between Egypt and China, and also the tripartite cooperation, if I may call it this way, China, Egypt, Africa, because simply Egypt is the gate to China to our black continent. And Egypt is going to exert all the time the utmost efforts for the developments of the African continent, our African state, the brotherly states we have in Africa. Their development is part and parcel of our development. And this was achieved on the ground. This was symbolized in many mega projects. This was symbolized in conveying our development expertise to many our African allies. These are the main topics we are going to discuss with a number of our economic experts via phone, and we are going to start immediately right after the short break. Welcome back, and to start our episode, as we do have a lot to speak about regarding this important summit which took place in Beijing recently, and it was represented by Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, who, as I said, addressed the gathering and had a number of meetings with many of the high-ranking Chinese officials, as well as businessmen who are really interested to invest here in Egypt. To shed more light on the event, we are very much delighted to have with us via phone Mr. Osama Murad, our financial and economic expert. Thank you very much for being with us, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Sir, if you permit me to start with, regarding the FOCAC, or the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, which was focusing on the economic opportunities and strategic investments. Which part or which side of the coin is going to benefit more from this cooperation? Because many will say that whenever China is included, then we guarantee that it's going to be a very profitable cooperation. And when we see the rifts which are taking place between China and the US and between China and EU, other voices are going to say that China is going to benefit even more to make sure that it's not going to be that negatively pressured by other economic powers. Which is which?
Well, any cooperation or partnership is only beneficial if the two parties win. So it's a win-win situation. China is Egypt's largest trading partner. China has vast interest in Africa and has tried many countries, but now has settled for Egypt to become kind of the industrial arm, where we are seeing a Chinese industrial free zone, many joint projects. One of them, the Prime Minister visited on joint collaboration of manufacturing of a Chinese car, a hybrid and an electric, as well as others. So it's a beneficial, joint beneficial. And
yes.
Also on Africa, China and Egypt can partner because there are comparative advantages both countries have. Aligning together, they can capture a big portion of the African market.
Also, among the activities which took place in Beijing, or in the Chinese capital, Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli witnessed inking a number of accords, a number of memoranda of understanding in many fields, whether it's industrial, whether it's IT, information technology, you name it. How do you see these deals? And because some voices are going to say it's more important even than the participation in the event itself. Inking these deals and to be witnessed by the head of the government, it's really more important. If you want to elaborate on that.
Yes, definitely. I fully agree. We have witnessed historically lots of those political pivots, which really their outcome is delayed and takes a large time factor. However, those partnerships agreements and investment agreements, which the Prime Minister witnessed, take into an immediate effect. Among them, the 100 million yuan partnership, the joint manufacturing, some other projects which are being materialized.
Sir, also Prime Minister Dr. Madbouli explained and stressed the importance of the Free Continental Zone. Free Continental Trade Zone is also another motive or another way to attract investors, particularly from China, to invest in Africa. How do you see signing or implementing on the ground such deals as I said, another way to attract investors?
Well, China is not only the largest investor or one of the largest in Egypt, but it's also the largest in Africa. And continental free zone would benefit the Chinese a lot, as well as the African partners, and would form a big piece in the puzzle of the Belt and Road initiative.
Yes. Also, providing debt relief to many African countries was one of the issues which were discussed. China pledged 360 billion yuan or 50.7 billion US dollars over 3 years in credit lines and investments. Some are saying that this number is not up to our ambitious plan or agenda for Africa. Others are saying it's a good start or a good step, but still in a long road. Which is which?
Well, it's definitely a sizable amount of money. It might supersede the total total investment in Africa. And anyhow, China never said this is the end of it. But the capacity of the African markets does not exceed this amount. If the African countries make these investments successful and profitable, we know the finances and the reserves of China. They will definitely invest much more. So it's a good start, and it's the largest foreign direct investment into Africa. So you cannot say that this is minimal.
Amen to that. But here comes the role of the banking sector. I think now it's a platform, the forum and other forums, and signing these accords, which we mentioned, it's going to be a golden opportunity for our banking sector to benefit from that and to introduce their services, whether financial or non-financial services. If you want to also elaborate on this.
Well, I don't think the banking sector will be the largest beneficial now, because our banking system is still slightly conservative and has not a lot of overseas presence. We might have one or two banks sporadically in Africa. There's only one commercial bank which exists in Kenya, which is an Egyptian bank, which is large. So this will take some time. And the Chinese traditionally come with their banks, with their development banks, with their industrial banks. So very doubtful that the banking sector will be beneficial, but rather the industrial and the exporting companies.
Being the gate to Africa, Egypt, I would say that easily, that Egypt is the gate of China to Africa. To reach the African market, Egypt is a milestone or a key player, let me put it this way. How do you see the strategic partnership between Egypt and China as symbolizing what I said? Egypt is the gate to Africa.
Yes, and I think the Chinese got that confirmed, because they tried to penetrate Africa alone. They had some bad experiences, some positive experiences, but definitely it makes much more sense to use Egypt as a gate with the vast experience and political and popular relations we have with the African countries.
Mr. Osama Mourad, our financial and economic expert, thank you very much for your input, sir, and have a very good evening. Right after the short break, we are going to return back with more. Welcome back, and to continue with the very fruitful visit of Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli to China, where he participated in the Forum of China-Africa Cooperation, or FOCAC, which was held in the Chinese capital in Beijing. We are very much delighted to have with us via phone our economic expert and the former vice president of the Egyptian Syndicate for Agriculture, or for Farmers, Engineer Hassan Shaban. Thank you very much for being with us, sir, and a very good evening.
Good evening to you. Thank you for calling me.
Sir, let's start immediately with some of the important meetings which took place on the sidelines of His Excellency Prime Minister Madbouli's participation in the FOCAC. And one of the meetings was with the chairperson of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress in Beijing, Zhao Li. I've chosen Zhao Li because really his statements regarding the fruitful and the strategic cooperation, the strategic relations between Egypt and China are really great. And he said that the growing Egyptian-Chinese relations on all levels is something which is a priority for both countries. And he also said that China is keen to invest in Egypt and to support the Egyptian mega development projects, particularly industry, agriculture, and infrastructure. How do you see this as a way to express the strategic, deeply rooted ties between Egypt and China in the economic domain?
Actually, timing of this forum actually is excellent to us in Egypt, because actually recently, I mean, we were talking about a year ago, Egypt just joined the BRICS. And China is a major partner in the BRICS organization. Actually, Egypt, when we talk about Egypt as the gate or the doorway to Africa, actually there is a point that we all disregard. Actually, Egypt could play a major role for all the African countries that do not have ports neither on the Mediterranean nor the Red Sea or the Atlantic Ocean. There's at least 8 countries south to the desert trapped. They do not have ports. They're isolated actually. And Egypt could play a major role in being the gateway to all these 8 countries. Especially these 8 countries are booming. A lot of economical plans are there to invest in mining, gold mining and gas, oil, name it. And I think if we can cooperate with our friends in the BRICS and have a highway that connects the Red Sea, one of our ports on the Red Sea, neither Safaga or Qusair or Ras Manas, any of these ports with a highway that penetrates all the way to these 8 countries, Chad, Benin, Burkina Faso, Niger, all of these countries, we will play a logistic port for them. I mean, if we have a free zone on our Red Sea and allocate the land for for these 8 countries, and just expect all the trade coming from the Far East to these countries and receive them in our Red Sea port and use this highway to go into Africa. This will be like a new Suez Canal for us, actually.
And to double or to duplicate the success of the Suez Canal Free Zone, as also
Exactly.
Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli witnessed the signing of a number of memoranda of understanding with the Suez Canal free economic zone, and to have many factories localizing industry, knowing well that the technology transfer is priceless and it can end with providing thousands, if not tens, if not hundreds of thousands of job opportunities. This is also another side of the coin, if you want to elaborate on that, sir.
Yes, actually, the free zone on the Suez Canal it will definitely play a major role in our cooperation with China because, of course, the location, you have to consider the skilled labor in Egypt and the relatively speaking cheap labor in comparison to other countries. So I think this industrial zone along the Suez Canal will definitely play a very major role to contribute to our economy in the near future.
Yeah.
I think also we could benefit from the Chinese expertise in the field of agriculture because a lot of people do not know really that China is very advanced in the agricultural field, actually.
Yeah.
And I think we could benefit a lot from the Chinese expertise in this field, especially in the south, around the Wainat, Tushka, all of these areas actually, we could definitely benefit a lot from the experience that China have gained in the last 3-4 decades in the field of agriculture.
Yeah, and to add to what you have just said, sir, localizing the solar panel industry. Solar panels industry, it's very promising and it's the future. Renewable energy is on top of our agenda, or our energy agenda to be accurate. And Prime Minister Dr. Madbouli said it this way: Egypt seeks localizing solar panels industry and technology linked to new and renewable energy, expressing preparedness to engage in partnerships in such projects as China is a leading country in this domain.
Hopefully we, will succeed in this field because, we've started. We do not manufacture yet the solar cells in Egypt, but definitely cooperation with China will lead us to manufacture these solar cells. Especially, we have the silica, we have all the raw materials required to produce this. Also, we could cooperate with China in creating a huge solar farms actually, and export the energy produced to Europe as clean energy. The Sahara is a good, huge mirror. So actually, if we utilize our Saharas and African Saharas, actually, this is a way to deal with the requirement of energy in Africa, because actually a lot of these countries lack electricity, and once we depend on solar energy,
on solar, on wind, on green hydrogen, you name it, sources of renewable energy. As I said, it's one of our state priorities. But I mentioned the solar panels industry in specific because these statements were released by Prime Minister Madbouli after a meeting with the chairperson of China Energy. As he said, the company has 12 projects in Egypt at $2 billion investment, attributing to the success of these projects to the continued support of Egypt. $2 billion, and in only one field. This means that we are entering a new era of a strategic economic or investment partnership with China.
Definitely. Recently, I think the government is paying a lot of attention to industrialization of our economy, by the way. I mean, we finished the phase of establishing the infrastructures and so forth, and I think we're entering rapidly into the industrialization and joining the modern industries and technology, actually. So I think very soon we will see cooperation not only between the government and government to government, but I think the private sector in Egypt will play a major role in cooperation with Chinese, right?
This was my coming question, sir, regarding the very big opportunities in front of the private sector. Investors, not only from Egypt and China, but from Egypt, African and Chinese sides. Because when it comes to potentials, when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to logistics, when it comes to expertise, all these collected together in a place. And here is Egypt. And here I'm going to give only one example, the Suez Canal economic zone. Maritime industry, IT, China, Egypt. If you put those four in one sentence, this means hundreds, if not thousands, of job opportunities and, in the same time, benefits for all sides. How do you see this as an example?
This is a very good example, actually. If we can actually coordinate our potentials, definitely we will come up with very successful allies, economical allies. And I think very soon we will see, some very fruitful results. I think also Prime Minister signed an agreement to produce, I think, bromine actually.
Yep.
And I think this is a very good step toward using our raw material in Egypt, because bromine is produced out of sodium chloride.
I think it's going to be the first of its kind here in Egypt.
Right. Yes, very true. And it is very important in medicine and agriculture, actually. Bromine is a very, very important element and material for agriculture and medical industry.
In fact, I didn't want to speak about bromine because it's very specialized, and I here wanted to make it easier for our viewers not to go into more or sophisticated details, but yet, as you've kindly mentioned, sir, we are talking about something which is the first of its kind, I think not only in Egypt, by the way, but in the area, in the Middle East, or I don't know if in Africa too. Sir, I'm going to mention another deal or another MOU, because it's also very important when we talk about the statistics or the numbers. An MOU which aims to establish 3 factories for manufacturing fiber optic cables and communication equipment, 3 centers for exporting outsourcing services, with 800 job opportunities in various fields. Those are the main job opportunities. Of course, indirect job opportunities are going to be available. Green transformation technology, semiconductors. I mean, now we are talking with relatively new terms or relatively new horizons. New fields are invaded. How do you see this, sir, as when we speak about these technologies as it's already on the ground? I mean, not dreams, not very ambitious agendas, but we are talking about events or factories or deals already signed and already implemented.
Yes, I think within the next couple of years we will see all of these agreements and plans actually active, and we will be able to export a lot of our production to Europe, actually. I think we will be able to catch up with some of the other countries, actually, that were ahead of us. We were engaged in some of the local problems, but I think politically we are stretching our hand to everybody, and we're looking for peace for the area. And I think all of these industries will benefit our economy tremendously.
Yeah, and you said in the start of your answer, sir, that whenever Egypt is going to remain or to continue playing this very pivotal role as the gate to Africa for China and for other countries, by the way, but here for China, according to the summit or the event which we are talking about, taking this into consideration is going all the time to turn Egypt into a logistics hub.
Exactly.
An administrative hub. And it's going all the time to work hard to continue with boosting these relations in all domains. True?
True, very true. I think once we establish this logistic hub actually along the Red Sea in Upper Egypt, I think this will change the face of the earth. Actually, this will attract a lot of young people to work over there. This location, I mean, this area was neglected for some time. I think we've dealt with the shores of the Red Sea as resorts and so forth. But I think it's now the time to consider establishing this logistic hub. I don't want to say it is similar to other countries were ahead of us, but I think this hub will serve all the countries that do not have ports on either the Red Sea or the Mediterranean. And all of these countries, by the way, are booming. And once we connect our logistic hub with these countries, I think there should be a mega company formed by the Egyptian banks as well as private sector to invest in Africa, in mining and in agriculture, actually. I think we need to utilize our relations with our brothers in Africa and establish mega plantations to grow certain crops that we do not grow in Egypt. But availability of rain and good soil in these countries is very attractive, and I think it will be a win-win situation for Egypt as well as our brothers in Africa.
Well, Engineer Hassan Shaban, thank you very much for your input, sir, and have a very good evening. Also, I want to add this: the MOUs also cover the establishment of a $300 million technological investment fund, data center, 4 training centers and laboratories, in addition to capacity building for more than 3,250 specialists, the human cadres, building or investing in the human being, taking into consideration that whenever all what we do is based on science, research, feasibility studies, taking into consideration that nothing is going to take place haphazardly or without very deep studies before implementing what we agreed upon on the ground, it's not anymore the case. Egypt is working on a scientific base in every single domain. And when it comes to investment, to economy, to trade, to statistics, to numbers, numbers are always here to tell you the truth. And whenever you are taking this into consideration, I think this is the very first and very important step to succeed. Right after the short break, we are going to turn back with other activities which took place by Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli in Beijing just 2 days ago. And we are going to turn back with more to say about the fruitful results of his visit. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now the world, it's a small village, not even a town. And whenever there is something between a big power and another big power, its impacts are going to be tremendous on the whole planet. I think the whole world learned this lesson, but in a very harsh manner. After, for example, the Russian-Ukrainian conflict and what happened after the supply chain and the food security issues which came after this conflict or this struggle, which unfortunately it's still continuing and God knows when it's going to end. Here I'm going just to mention some of the struggles between China and the US on the economic side. China's Commerce Vice Minister said a modern China with huge population is an opportunity, not a threat for the United States, because the United States considered it a threat. And here is the answer from the Chinese side. The talks co-chaired by U.S. Undersecretary of Commerce for International Trade Marisa Legault are the second this year involving two officials and come amid trade tensions between the two powers. This means that the United States and China are going to have their own disputes, and this is going to lead China and to lead the United States also to try to find another solution and another way to benefit from or to grab benefits and to continue with promoting or with boosting its economy. The United States on Friday warned of growing risks for businesses operating in Hong Kong, saying that routine activities could run afoul of the financial hub's new national security regulations. Because of what? Because China had agreed to a one country, two systems approach for Hong Kong before the territory was handed over from Britain. This was back in 1997. To add to all of this, a dozen Republican U.S. lawmakers urged the Biden administration to address the use of Chinese-manufactured agricultural drones, saying their use on American farms poses national security risks. This means that the FOCAC, or the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, which took place recently with the participation, of course, of Egypt, represented by Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, who really had such big activities there. It was a very important participation, and this forum is a platform to continue with more investments between China and Africa in general, between China and Egypt in specific. China is going to all the time search for other sides of the coin. A little bit far, I'm not going to say to separately, to continue this separation between China and the United States, or China and the European Union. But Africa is a big partner, and Egypt is the gate to Africa. And when Egypt witnessed the signing of many memoranda of understanding between China and Egyptian economic entities, like the Suez Canal Economic Zone, like the Ministry of Information Technology, for example, and those only are examples. This means that we are on the right track to benefit from the current situation and to tell China that China can depend on the African side as a way to get far from all the tensions posed or imposed on China by other big powers. Africa is filled with opportunities, filled with potentials, natural resources. Here, for example, in Egypt, when it comes to renewable energy and to solar panels industry, to green hydrogen, you name wind power, wind turbines, and to localize these industries here in Egypt with the help or support of China and Chinese technology, this is going to be a win-win situation 100%. And when it comes to technology transfer, it's going also to be another way of proving the strategic partnership that bind the two nations. I'm not going to continue only speaking about the MOUs or in detail, but for example, TIDA Egypt to establish a factory for glass production over an area of 500,000 square meters, and the project is one of the main pillars to localize renewable energy related industries with total investments of $300 million US. Here I'm talking only about one MOU and one project. This means that we already started a long journey, but in a very tangible, concrete steps on the ground. And in fact, whether President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi or Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli or our ministers on all levels, I mean, and in many occasions, they said that localizing industry is one of the priorities. And of course, this is going to take place by our own hands and also with the strategic partnerships, not only one, with the big powers in the whole world. And this visit by Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli and his participation in the FOCAC is an implementation of what we have said, Egypt 2030 agenda. Well, in fact, I mean, there are a lot to speak about and a lot of activities, but all what I can say that it was a very fruitful participation, very fruitful visit by Prime Minister Dr. Madbouli to Beijing, and all the meetings he had on the sidelines of the forum were very important, were very vital to boost relations with China and with other African allies, and also to say another important statement. Egypt works hard for African development. Egypt is not at all against the development of any nation, and particularly with Africa, we're all the time extending our hands to develop Africa, because developing Africa is part and parcel of our sustainable development process. Egypt is always the big sis, and Egypt is going to all the time continue to be the big sis. Egypt is the African, Arab, Islamic, Mediterranean country which is going all the time to play pivotal roles on all these arenas. Well, by this we come to the end of our episode. Stay tuned on Nile TV International always for more updates. Now I'm going to leave you with the most important economic events which took place in the past 7 days. Till we meet again same time on Nile TV International. Many thanks for watching. This was Nermeen Abdurrahman.